You are listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report, episode 155.2, Will Rutherford's 5 Questions That Need Answers. On this week's edition, Will answer questions about the NFL and the Colts, the NBA and the Pacers, and the College Football National Championship.
You're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report with your host, Greg Mengelt.
Welcome back to Stage 22 and to the Central Indiana Sports Report. Will, we are to a point where the first question is no longer relevant.
Yep.
We've been asking it for 25 weeks now, probably.
It's been a while. Yep.
Yeah, since well before the first game of the season. The top 5 teams most likely to win the Super Bowl. Now there are only 4. So let's go backwards since we can't do it. Since we can't do a top 5, let's go backwards this time and start with the 4th most likely team to win the Super Bowl heading into the conference championships. Will.
I don't know if I love this answer for myself, but I got to say the Commanders. I feel like
we don't use that word on this.
Excuse me, Washington.
Okay.
I don't know. They're playing with house money. I think at this point, we talked about it briefly on Sunday how well they played against Detroit, but I don't expect them to come out and play 2 perfect games and 2 perfect performances again, especially being on the road divisional opponent. I think that they are they're the last year's Lions. They are this year's Lions of last year, where they kind of overachieved a little bit. Nobody really expected them. Like good, definitely building upon week by week getting better, but probably not a team that's really competing to win a championship. And they've got this far, and that's great. But I think this week is when they meet their match. I just think that it's going to be really difficult for them to beat Philly again.
I think you're right, but I don't think there's a very large gap between number 4 and number 3. Do we have the same number 3?
I think the 3's the Eagles.
I agree. Agreed.
So I would say that no, I don't think there's that big of a gap. I like Philly at home, especially just Saquon's playing so well. If Jalen Hurts can be even halfway competent throwing the ball, I would imagine that the preface of the Commanders defensively is going to be, can we slow Saquon down and keep him under 200 yards, which seems to be a tall task this year.
It does.
But I would say that you have to go into this game thinking, okay, Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Jahan Dotson, like they're all going to have to play their best. I anticipate just because they are familiar and have been in this position, they're going to do that.
I agree with everything that you're saying here. I think the way I would say it is I think Eagles and Washington is about a toss-up. I kind of expect the way what we've seen the last few weeks is Washington to be almost perfect on offense because this guy's unreal. He's just unreal. He's unshakable. He makes all the right throws. He makes all the right runs when there's a run open. He doesn't take a lot of big hits. This guy's – it kind of reminds me of Larry Bird when he came into the NBA, was just thinking ahead of everybody else in the NBA. He had thought basketball at a different level than anyone else ever had. And it looks like when he's out on the field, he's out thinking the defense as he's doing it. The thing I will take that I'll say on the other side is up front, the Eagles' defense has been so good.
Yeah.
And I don't think Washington can handle that.
Well, I think they're going to be met with their match as far as A-gap pressure is a quarterback's worst enemy. As a quarterback, you don't like being pressured up the middle because it takes away the ability to step up in the pocket and deliver a clean ball. And Jalen Carter's going to disrupt the A-gap.
He's been every bit as big as Saquon in the postseason.
That's going to happen. And personally, I really think that the Eagles have something that maybe the Buccaneers and the Lions didn't have, and they have a linebacker that can truly spy Jaden Daniels. Zach Bond can run with Jaden Daniels and will be a thorn in his side. I think that in coverage, the Eagles linebackers are better than what they face. I don't think Hurts is going to be nearly as effective. I think that the nickel package that the Eagles have is also going to disrupt. I think the Eagles can cover McLaurin. They can bracket McLaurin. This team doesn't have a ton of.
But the
guys
loss
that are
of
gonna kill
Mitchell
you.
really hurts.
Well, it hurts, but you're going to put a safety over the top, and you're going to tell Coop to go play his heart out.
You know the reason I've been on the Eagles since about week 11, week 12. It's because I saw how good the two rookie the two rookie defensive backs. I don't know if they're corner. They're kind of a mix. DeJean will go between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Based on them, that's the reason I've been on Philadelphia to win the NFC all year. And losing Mitchell, especially when you're coming in a quarterback playing that well, is that the difference? Could it be the difference?
But they only have one playmaker. I mean, that you have to key in and you have to stop Terry McLaurin. They are going to devote 4 eyes to him. They're going to put, I would imagine, I don't know if they'll put DeJean on McLaurin. I'd kind of be surprised. Kenyon Mitchell's been more of their cover corner, and then they've shaded DeJean over to either the nickel or.
And that's what makes him so good, is he can do everything.
But they're going to devote. You're going to have CJ back there,
but he's not a shutdown corner.
No, but they don't need a shutdown corner if you're bracketing him, and if you've got 4 eyes on him, they just need somebody that can kind of cover low and not let. And you're going to have a safety that's not going to let him get beat over the top. The Eagles have an advantage in this matchup because they can get pressure with 4, which means they can truly devote 7 to the pass game. You're going to keep Bond spying Daniels. So then in theory, it's 6-on-3, 6-on-4. I just think that the Eagles have too much talent for the Commanders' offense to. They're going to be fine, but I mean they're going to score points. I'm not worried of them scoring 7, 10 points, but I think that a lot of the touchdowns they've been getting are going to turn into field goals, and that's just not going to get it done.
Well, I'm going to need you to right now to make a public apology for using that word on the Central Indiana Sports Report again.
The Commanders. I'm sorry, Washington. Excuse me.
Thank you.
I've gotten too used to saying it now.
By the way, my protest isn't even that the Redskins is to me what they'll always be, and it will be. That's not even what it is. They had such a great opportunity to rename the name something cool, and they completely blew it. And Red Tails would have been perfect, and they just blew it. Rumor is they might change it again. So
well. We'll see. I mean, I've heard that they're going to change it back to the Redskins if they're going to change it back.
That would be wonderful.
So,
but I also love Red Tails. That would be, to me, nobody would be offended by it, and you're honoring the Tuskegee Airmen, plus it's a really cool hawk. Yeah. No reason not to do it.
Yeah, I unfortunately, it's been a fun run for Washington. But
Jaden Daniels is so much fun to watch.
He's really fun to watch, and
you called it on him.
Yeah, I mean, he's an incredibly talented player, but I just think they're outmatched.
All right, so tell me.
I think they're outmatched.
Percentage. You think Eagles win? What percentage chance do they have to win?
I think it's, I'm going to say 60-40, and I'm going to give it to them at home. I think the Commanders are playing really good football. Washington is playing really good football, and I'm not going to sit here and say that they don't have any chance coming to this game, that they can't do anything, they can't win.
So what we're saying here is, I think both of us, we won't be surprised by who wins the NFC if it is Washington, but we don't think the NFC can win the Super Bowl.
No, the NFC cannot win the Super Bowl.
So let's go to number 2.
I mean,
do it. You got to pick one.
I'm going to get flack, but just because I'm not going to I don't want to be the scapegoat. I'm going to say that the Bills are 1B. So I'm going to say maybe 2. And I might argue myself into saying they're 1. But
well, I have more courage than you, so I'm just going to say it. I picked the Chiefs all year to be number 1 most likely. I think it's the Bills.
Yeah, I think the Bills are going to beat them. I really do. I think that this is a really bad matchup for the Chiefs, and I think that the Bills. I think they're going to beat them. So I'm going to say Chiefs 2. I'm going to say Chiefs 2, and I'm going to say Bills 1.
Did I talk you into your courage?
I think your courage helped me for sure, but
I think it's the Bills' year.
I think that they're just playing really well.
And Josh Allen is special, and it reminds me of Brett Favre when Brett Favre was coming up, and all of a sudden one day he was just the best in the league and was just better than everybody. And Patrick Mahomes, this is absolutely no disrespect. And by the way, you said 60-40. I think it's about the same in this one.
I agree.
I'll take Buffalo about 60-40. If Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid find a way to win, I will not be shocked. I've been saying that all year. You were like, oh, they lost Pacheco earlier in the year. I'm like, yes, but they still have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, and they figure things out as they go. That's what they do. But I don't think they're good enough to beat the Bills.
No,
Kansas City.
I just don't think they have enough. I don't think they have the guys to match up one-on-one against them. I think you line 11 up. I think the Bills are better in just about maybe receiver. You could argue that the 2 and 3 receivers for the Chiefs are a little better than the Bills. But
how many times, though, has Andy Reid been mismatched and found a way to win the game?
Well, how many Andy Reid's not been mismatched against Josh Allen? So
I know, but he's been mismatched against some really good teams and found a way to win.
Sure, but
most of the time. Now, sometimes, like when they played the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl, they were just outmatched position for position, and they got their butts kicked. And I think that's what we're seeing here in this game.
It would be one thing if the previous – everybody brings up the statistic of that Josh Allen's 4-0 in the regular season and Mahomes is 3-0 in the postseason. And I think that those numbers would mean a lot more if they were blowouts one way or another. Like the Bills are blowing the Chiefs out in the regular season and the Chiefs are blowing the Bills out in the postseason, where it's just like, we're a great regular season team. We struggle. These games every game's one score. I mean, every game we're talking about a bounce of a ball going one way versus another. We're talking about who gets the ball last. We're talking about just things that it's not. These teams are so evenly matched. It's not like the Bills. I mean, we could go back and recount. I mean, have they lost in the postseason by more than 6 points to the Chiefs in their last three matchups? I can't recall that happening. And the last 2 matchups have been the final score. It's been the last possession has been what's won the game. And in one of those matchups, Josh Allen didn't even get a chance to match. So I wouldn't be shocked if this game goes to overtime. I wouldn't be shocked if both teams score their first time in overtime. But I just feel like at some point, the magic of the Chiefs is going to be met by this being the year of the Bills.
Yeah, and the Bills just being a better team.
I think the Bills are going to. I think this is going to be a gritty game. I think it's probably going to be much lower scoring than people want to think. I don't know if the winning team is going to leave the 20s. I'm not sure the losing team is. I just think the Bills are going to control the clock. They're going to run the ball really effectively with both Cook and Allen. Ray Davis is going to come in and be a good change of pace back. They're going to dump down to Shakir, who is great yards after catch. I think the tight ends are going to play a role.
And the other thing I said about the Bills coming into the season is you were worried about everybody that they lost. And I said, I think they were happy to let them go. I think that it was addition by subtraction. Those guys were getting past their prime.
Yeah.
They knew they had guys who could come in and fill those roles for now. And they still have a lot of flexibility and Josh Allen going forward.
Well, I don't think that
So if they lose this game, it's not over for Josh Allen.
It's not. I mean, it's not. It took Peyton Manning won his first Super Bowl in his 9th year. I mean, and Josh Allen. I mean, what we're talking about. This is his 6th or 7th year. I mean, this career arc. It's very rare for quarterbacks to come in and just win immediately, and they're just Mahomes is an anomaly.
He is an anomaly.
Tom Brady is an anomaly.
Yes.
Like this is not the situation for anyone else. You have to learn how to win, and the Bills, through all their trials and tribulations, through everything, I just feel like the Bills in these matchups against the Chiefs, they've learned more from losing than the Chiefs have from winning. I think they've learned more about themselves. They've learned more about their culture, more about their team. They've been tested a lot more in these situations, in these win or go home scenarios where they have to buck up and they are the man going home and they're getting on that plane sad. And cleaning out their lockers Monday. The Chiefs have never had to do that. I just feel like this is one of those where the Bills just they finally just beat the bully. You know, they just muster the courage and they get it done, and it's ugly, but they do it, and the triumph is going to be great.
All right. This is not one of the questions, but I'm going to go ahead and ask you. Give me final scores for Washington, Philly.
Washington, Philly, I'm going to say 31-24.
I think it's low scoring. I'm going to say 21-20.
I don't think the Commanders haven't played low scoring games. I don't see them. Excuse me, Washington. Washington has not played in low scoring games, and I don't see that changing. I think they'll score points. I just think the Eagles will score more.
I think the Eagles up front will manhandle Washington. On their defensive will manhandle their offensive line, and it'll be a low-scoring game. That's my guess. Plus, it's going to be cold, and there's going to be a lot of running.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, and then Chiefs-Bills?
23-20.
Say 31-21. I think it's a double-digit win by the Bills. I think they control the game throughout. I think this is Josh Allen's. I'm the best.
I agree. In my heart, I want to say that you're right, but I don't. I just don't think these two teams. I don't think there's 2-score games and involve these two teams.
I also won't be surprised if it's 31-10.
I think it's going to be. I think Tyler Bass is going to kick a field goal to send him to the Super Bowl.
Question number 2.
Okay.
What should the Colts target in the draft and free agency, starting with the most important?
I would say that the Colts' biggest need, I guess, they've got a lot of holes that need filled. I don't know if I would say that
there's not a place they can't upgrade.
No. I'd say that, I guess, tight end. I think we're learning it throughout the league that having a dynamic tight end is a real game changer.
So Tyler Warren in the draft?
I feel like if he's there at 14, you got to take him. You missed out on Bowers last year, regardless of what you wanted to say about Latu. You wanted Bowers. You were really hoping Bowers was going to fall to 15. Unfortunately, he was taken one pick ahead. You got a consolation prize, I guess. He was a Pro Football Writers Association first team all rookie.
But he wasn't the best defensive end in the draft.
No. And I feel like if you can't pass up the opportunity to get an athlete like Tyler Warren on your team. And I think he'll be a huge help to Richardson.
Personality and leader.
I think he'll be a huge help to Richardson's development as a quarterback. I think that he could be the missing piece, really. I think tight ends are my uncle Marty always used to say, tight ends are a quarterback's best friends, especially young quarterbacks, and I think
it's true.
I think Warren proves to be that. So I'm going to say that is probably need number one. I think this year you watch games and you thought to yourself, man, it would be awesome if we had a real great tight end.
I think upgrading the passing game, if it's at receiver or tight end, I would agree.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's a receiver I love that you're taking at 14.
If McMillan fell, maybe.
He's not falling that far. And neither, Luther Burden, I guess, I don't see him falling that far.
You're probably right. That might be more of a free agent.
I don't think that there is somebody, a first-round grade that I'm saying this guy needs to be. Yeah. I don't know if Emeka Ibuka is there at 14. I think you consider it.
Yeah, probably will be.
I like his game a lot. And Ohio State receivers age very well. If there's an LSU receiver coming out or an Ohio State, I think you really think about taking them if you have that opportunity. The other obvious answer for me is they need secondary help.
Shut down corner.
They need a shutdown corner badly. The
other two guys are
serviceable, but they're not
B- C+ guys.
They're not who you need.
Jalen Johnson was very impressive this year for his second season, but he is not a shutdown guy.
I'm still in the camp that they really need more defensive line help. I think they need a true edge rusher. I think they need a true 10 to 12 to 15 sack guy a year.
But they keep drafting those guys.
No, and they're failing every time, and that's part of the reason that I think Chris Ballard needed to be on the chopping block is his inability to to draft good and develop good pass rushers. So this is if there's one there in free agency, whatever, this is kind of one of those situations where I feel like you have to upgrade there. I'm going to say 3. I feel like O-line helps somewhere. I don't know kind of what, if Kelly retires, they definitely need a center. I like Bortolini. I'm not sure he's elite. I don't think his peak's elite. I think his elite.
But he's got a shot.
His peak's good.
He and Gonzalez both have a shot.
I mean, Will Fries was playing a really good right guard before his injury. I think you hold out hope that he comes back and that he is back to full form that he was prior to the injury.
If they're solid anywhere, it's on the offensive line.
Yeah, I just feel like they need an upgrade somewhere because you kind of saw how the year went on. The offensive line got a little worse with injuries and stuff like that. I don't know what Braden Smith's outlook looks like. I believe he's a free agent. So I guess you could make an argument. I mean, they've got the Goncalves. I don't know. I feel like that's a need that people that we're going. It's going to be the classic Colts where we say we like our 5 up front, but they really could probably make an upgrade somewhere.
You and I differed on Nelson's value to the team, but one thing he can do is be a road grader. And if you can get another tackle who's a road grader and a center, you're not going to be able to stop Richardson and Taylor with it. Plus, get some wide receivers who block. That's the other thing I want to see.
Pittman's a great blocker.
Right.
Pittman is a he's a short list. I mean, I'm talking.
I think that's more important to running games than like
people like to give it credit for. Absolutely,
like Bill Walsh's receivers always block. Jerry Rice always,
I agree with that completely. I love a good receiver block. I love a receiver downfield driving a guy backwards. I think that's part of the reason the Rams run game works so well outside of the tackles is because both Kupp and Nakua are excellent blocking receivers. Also, why San Francisco's good. Ayuk and Debo, when he wants to be, are both really good blocking receivers. Yeah. Same with Detroit. Amon-Ra is a really good. So I think that is important. They need somebody that's really going to be gritty, a gritty receiver in the pass game. I expect Pittman's not going to be like that again. That was an anomaly. Pittman over the course of his career has shown what he is when he's given the targets. He's going to be over 1,000 again next year. He's going to
be a great number 2 receiver.
Yeah, he is.
He would be a great. The problem is he's had to be the number 1.
Yeah,
that's where the Colts passing game is. And if he's a 1A and 1B, if you got Tyler Warren and he became that other guy, that'd be wonderful.
Well, and there's nothing to say a quarterback like Richardson, a tight end, definitely could be your favorite pass game target. I love Michael Pittman. He has been just a tough, gritty Colt. He is one of the few that I think embodies what it means to be an NFL pro day in and day out. I mean, the fact that he played with back fractures, kind of, I don't want to say risking career, but you're definitely jeopardizing a year of your career off if you do anything worse. And he showed up and played every day.
Well, one thing I thought throughout the season was that the team did play hard. I thought they played hard all the time. They were in almost every single game, and I thought that Steichen got them up for every game. That wasn't the issue. I just felt that they were outmatched at a lot of places.
I think the defense laid more than a few eggs.
Well, that's after they started to accrue some injuries. But, early on, the defense was keeping them in games. Now, they couldn't stop the run early, but I never thought the effort was an issue. I just thought they weren't good enough.
I don't know. I feel like the more everything kind of came out the way the year transpired, like Pittman is no drama. He shows up to work every day. And I feel like a lot of teams, the Colts take that for granted because they've been blessed with really selfless receivers historically since the Bill Polian era with both Reggie and Marvin and Austin Collie, and then transitioning into more of a Reggie and T.Y. Hilton, T.Y. to Michael Pittman. Like these guys, these were selfless receivers that they didn't complain where they weren't getting the ball. If the game plan was we need to not, force targets to you, we're not going to. And that doesn't happen everywhere. A receiver like Pittman who's okay not seeing a target, that doesn't exist. You know, the 1As, the 1Bs, the 2s, they still demand the ball. They want the ball. He's an anomaly, and I think that you have to be thankful for that. You know, the Colts is, interestingly enough, they're the only team with 3 receivers with over 800 yards receiving.
Yeah, receiver depth is not an issue.
Only team in the league. Yeah. So
they have a lot of good receivers. The problem is they don't have that one go-to guy.
They don't have the alpha. They don't have an alpha one.
Yep. And Pittman would be a perfect number 2. Anyway, let's go to question number 3. The Pacers play the Spurs 2 games Thursday and Saturday in Paris. They play at 2 o'clock on Thursday. That game's on NBA TV. Then they play Saturday at noon. Do you like sending NBA teams in the regular season overseas? Is it worth it?
I think it depends on who you're asking. If your concern is growing the game internationally and getting viewership up in places that are not the United States, I'd say, yeah, it is probably pretty important. Is it the best thing to happen? Probably not. But, I mean, the NFL plays games in London for the first, And
I would ask you, do you like that?
No, I don't. I don't think the London – I think the London games are a detriment typically to teams. So I would say that as a Pacers fan, no, I don't love that they're playing these games, that they're having to eat a home game in France. I don't love that. But
yeah, the one thing I would say is one thing I'd like to see, and I wrote a column about this 5-6 years ago. When they come home from Paris, both teams should be at home for 10 days before they have to make another trip. The Pacers come home, play 1 game at home, and then go out west. So you're asking them to travel 14 hours over a 3-day period or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that can really hurt a team. It might not. It might be a galvanizing trip. And honestly, jet lag's not as big as a deal as it used to be. They can sleep on the flights.
And they're also the training staff, they're making sure, hey, we're going to keep our bodies adapted. If we're over there.
But if you had to do that and the other team didn't, that's a pretty big advantage for the other team.
It is. It's a big advantage for the other team. However, I would say it's negligible as far as, is it that big of a disadvantage coming into it, whether you went to Paris and then you went home and then you came out, or you were at home for a week and then you had to come out and play? I don't know. I would say
I would just like to see them have a policy that if they make a trip like that, they come home and stay home for a while.
I mean, I think in a perfect scenario, yes. Obviously, it's not a perfect world.
Not that big of a deal is what you're telling me.
I think these are professional athletes, and there are people that wake up and have to work way harder than these guys are day in and day out.
I understand. I'm just saying that when you're talking about professional athletes and you give one team a distinctive edge by not doing something the other team had to do, I'm just saying it's a possibility. You're right. It's worth it. It's really not that worth complaint. It's not that much difference going to Europe and coming back than going to the West Coast.
It's not. It's really. I mean, it's you're talking about a 5-hour difference versus a 3-hour difference. I mean, do you really that worried?
Yeah, in luxury, not that big.
They're flying first class. They're staying at the nicest hotel in Paris. They're getting to do media tours. They're getting to experience a culture and city that probably for most players they've never seen or been a part of. I think that there's a lot of positives that outweigh the negatives, and I think the same thing with the London games. I think NFL teams make a big deal about it and grow the game. Why would you not want to? I get that you think it puts you at a disadvantage. Guess what? You're at a disadvantage with every injured player you have. You're at a disadvantage with going to the West Coast. You're at a disadvantage. I mean, there's a million things that put you at a disadvantage. Going and playing in London, isn't doing that. When you get to go see and experience, for a lot of these NFL players, probably haven't left the country before, probably getting a passport, probably going and seeing a foreign country and a foreign culture for the first time. It's like embrace
fans getting to make the trip over.
Embrace it. It's fun. It's fun.
You're
it's fun for the fans. It's fun for the people. It's fun waking up and watching a game at 9:30.
I'm just very protective of my Pacers.
Well, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that your arguments aren't sound. I would just like to. My main thing is just leave them at home for a while when they get back, so that they don't have to deal with that.
let's do that with the West Coast too. If the West Coast teams come east, when they go back, just let them stay home for a while, or not have to travel very far, But I'm not a schedule maker, and there's really not that much to complain about, honestly.
I mean,
in the middle of a long NBA season, to have kind of a cool trip to Paris, and we get to watch the Pacers on national television.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be on national television twice.
Against
a big deal.
Against the next big thing. So my next question is, the Pacers need to go 2-0, right?
I mean, if you're asking if they absolutely need to go,
no, I don't. I mean, if the way they're playing, the way we're starting to think about them, if they are that team, they need to be 2-0.
If they go 2-0, they're coming home and you're really happy. I would say 1-1 is probably a little bit more realistic. I don't imagine that
Spurs have been playing they're poorly.
Playing really bad, but this is going to be a jolt. Getting to do something like this. 2-0, you come home 26-19 after the way you started, and you feel excellent. You're like, this is.
Let's push it to the All-Star break.
Let's keep our foot on the gas. But I think 1-1's realistic. Just as a somebody that's looking at it from a non, kind of subjective opinion, I really like the Pacers. I want to see them go 2-0. I think it's one of those where it's just like the MLB. You go and play these games. It's really hard to sweep a team. It just is. When you play 3 games, that rubber match.
But if you feel yourself a championship level team, you need to go beat a below 500 team on a neutral floor twice.
They need to go win. They need to go win 2 games. They're going to be the visiting team. I mean, the contingency is going to be very in favor of Wembanyama and the Spurs. So I mean, sure, it's on a neutral site, but they're kind of the away team
of course.
Too.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yes, they need to go 2-0. They for the fact of where they think they are and where they want to end up, they need to go 2-0 in their head. Realistically, they're going to go 1-1, and they're going to come home 25-20, and hopefully they continue this streak of playing really well.
Side question: do we see more of Walker guarding Wembanyama? Is that going to be? We're going to see more of him because he's their best defensive player, and kind of has the size to.
I mean, it's a tall task to ask him. I mean, Jarris is looking at 6'7", 6'8". I mean, he's got a good wingspan.
Yeah, but he's so clever defensively.
He's a really good defender. I feel like you probably are leaning that way, although you're going to see Turner matched up on him a lot too. Yeah, you don't like that. I feel like
that's what I'm saying.
The way that Wembanyama plays,
Siakam too would not be good against
the way that Wemby plays. I feel like Walker, because he's going to play on the perimeter. About 50-50. I feel like you're probably matching Walker up a lot. And Walker's probably going to get more minutes than he's gotten the rest, previously in this year, just because I think the matchup kind of calls for it.
And he's been playing really well lately.
I would expect that you're going to see a healthy dose of him on Wemby. I really do. And I think you're going to see a healthy dose of McConnell on Chris Paul, because I think that McConnell is a surgeon defensively as well.
By the way, Ron Artest is the last defensive player who had the instincts as good as Walker does. Walker's got those kinds of defensive instincts.
Well, I hope that he can develop an offensive game, because if so, he can be a really dangerous player for this team.
And he's starting to. And he's got great vision, great passer. I love that. The ball moves with him. Man, that's a big deal at that position.
Well, it was a big deal that they took him at 7 and traded for him. That was a big deal, and it needs to. I feel like a top 10 pick in the NBA. I know there's busts everywhere, but where the Pacers were in their franchise, that's a pick that they need to hit on.
It was a big one, yeah.
That's a pick they need to hit on, because there were guys behind him that were maybe better win now kind of candidates. He needs to pan out.
He looks like he's going to be a good one, man. All right, last question. You've called Ohio State pretty much all year. There was no doubt in the end. Your thoughts on the national championship? Notre
Dame put up a gallant effort. I really kind of thought that they had a chance to win that game. I've got some issues with what they did on 3rd and 11. As from a fan. I'm not a big Notre Dame fan. I grew up rooting for Notre Dame and stuff, but as somebody that was definitely cheering for Notre Dame against Ohio State, I don't know why on God's green earth you leave Smith singled up on a 3rd and 11 that is a must-have. It was just really bad schematic play calling. I don't know why. You were 3rd and 11. Put your safeties at the sticks and keep it in front of you. I mean, I just don't know why. It was just such a gamble. And I'm well aware of the fact that,
Freeman's a great coach. It was not a great performance.
It is one of those where, you're rushing 6. You hope that you get to the quarterback in time. Will Howard's probably going to be rushed. He's going to have to make a perfect throw. But the throw doesn't have to be perfect if Jeremiah Smith's 8 yards, spaced between the Notre Dame corner. I mean, it was a really silly play call, and I feel like it's one of those that if they had back, maybe they called differently. I really hope they do, because I don't know why that was ever what they did. But they just dug themselves too big of a hole early. I mean, they just didn't keep it close enough in the end. If you're Notre Dame, you leave that game feeling good, though. Where your program's at, with the coach that you have, with the recruiting that you're going to have coming in, you feel really happy that you've kind of turned your program around from a place where it was very mediocre for the last, 10 years. I mean, they had good teams. They had double-digit win teams that went to bowl games, but they never performed when they needed to. Whenever the lights came on and they needed to play well in a playoff semifinal, or they needed to play well to get into the Final Four, they didn't. And they got past the boogeyman of beating the SEC with Georgia. They obviously beat Penn State in a game that historically Notre Dame at this point doesn't win, and they did it. And they gave Ohio State a tough matchup if you were an Ohio State fan in that 4th quarter, you weren't sitting comfortable. I mean, they almost got the ball back. I don't know. I think that you have to be really happy. And Ohio State, they played like a national champion the entire tournament.
Do you like the new playoff?
I'm going to argue 2 ways. I like the playoff from the standpoint of it gets more teams involved. It gives teams a little bit more wiggle room, and it obviously sells a lot more ads and a lot of sponsorships, and it's really fun to talk about. And that's all great. That's all dandy for college football. I don't like it from the standpoint of it negated Ohio State losing an absolutely crippling game. And the past couple years, Ohio State loses that game to Michigan. They don't make the tournament. They don't make the Final Four. They're not in it. And I feel like a little bit that's kind of how it should be. You can't lose that game to Michigan. Like, that game to Michigan is a killer. Notre Dame's lost to Northern Illinois. Like, unacceptable. Can't happen. It's a killer. I'm sorry.
Well, every other game at every other level is the exact same way, and yet they have a playoff where that team will get in and get another chance.
It's just
every other sport, including every other college football level.
It's just not what Division I FBS football's been, and I feel like there is a point where you have to say that maybe it was better the way it was, and I think there's a point where you have to say you really like this playoff format. I'm just saying there's 2 sides to it. There's 2 stories to tell. There's the story where it's really positive and it grows the game and people are excited about the playoffs and they're excited about talking, and then there's the point of it where sometimes the pageantry is just nice and the tradition is nice and things the way that they had always been is nice, and there's 2 coin flips to that. It was really nice when those New Year's Six bowls were New Year's Six bowls, and you had a big party and they were all lined up. You had the whole night to watch TV, and it was awesome watching a Big Ten Pac-12 matchup, and it was awesome watching an ACC and an SEC game, and all of those things were really cool. And that's kind of not there anymore, just by the happenstance of when the playoffs. Like, are they going to, they have these rotating sixes. Is the Rose Bowl not going to be played on New Year's Day when it's their turn to be the semifinal? Nope. The Rose Bowl should never not be on New Year's Day. The national championship,
but it's not going to.
The national championship should be at the Rose Bowl every year, New Year's Day. So whatever they got to do to make that happen, because that's really what fans want. Like fans want that. That is cool for fans. That would be where I would say that is where it needs to change. That's where it needs to become, maybe revert back a little bit to tradition and not just completely forget about it.
Thanks so much to Will for joining the Central Indiana Sports Report, and of course to you for listening. Please like, subscribe, or follow us on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, or YouTube so you don't miss a single segment. And word of mouth is how this podcast is going to spread the most. If you like what you hear, please share it with a friend. We would be forever grateful. The Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media. And I love Susie.